Hi, everyone, and welcome. This is Walt Bayliss with the Business and People podcast. Today, we are going to be communicating. We're going to be connecting, and we're going to be finding out how networks can really help you build your business with none other than Lindsay Adams. Now, Lindsay is the published author of The DNA of Business Relationships, which you can buy on Amazon. Lindsay also is a stage speaker who develops relationships, who can help you with your conference, with your seminar, with your business, and help you to connect with people, building relationships, and as a result, building your business along the way. Lindsay's had a wealth of knowledge in this area, and it's really an exciting thing for me to be able to bring Lindsay onto the show to talk about how these networks and connections can help people achieve more and more in their lives. Without any further ado, my pleasure to bring on Mr. Lindsay Adams. Lindsay, thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, Walt, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. So thank you for inviting me.
No, that's my pleasure. Lindsay, as I look at your career, you've built what you have now as an amazing success. And of course, the book there, congratulations on that as well, on connecting with people and forming those relationships quickly. How did you get into that field?
It's a good question. That's, gee whiz, we could take a long time to answer that one, Walt. But
as long as you need, man.
Version. So my background, 20 plus years in the public sector. Started my career in the Australian Taxation Office once upon a time. First half of my career there in audit, second half of my career in HR and training. And here's an interesting thing. I went on a manager development program, and it was a huge 9-month extravaganza. We started off with a week's residential workshop on Bribie Island, followed by a 3-month work placement, a week at the Byron Bay Beach Resort, followed by a 3-month work placement, a week on Stradbroke Island, for those who don't know what Stratty is, followed by a 3-month work placement, graduation ceremony, report on action learning project for that whole thing. Here's the interesting part though. End of day one on the 3rd residential workshop, the facilitator says, okay, boys and girls, we're done. Dinner's at 7. See you at the bar. Lindsay, have you got a minute? And I said, went up to him and said, how can I help? And he said, why are you here? You're not like these people. You don't fit. And that question led to a 3-hour conversation. And that guy held up a mirror for me and helped me understand I was in the wrong job. Amazing. Wow. It was what I describe as a catalyst moment in my life. Yeah, definitely. And it didn't happen overnight, but it did happen. I'm not an auditor. I'm a people person. And so I got out of audit and went into training. And I realized that training people is where I excel. And so started my HR career, left the tax office, went to Queensland Health, managed Sunshine Coast Regional Health, 6 hospitals, 3,000 staff. Went there from there to Brisbane City Council, had a team of 17 HR consultants working for me, left them in the year 2000, started my own business. Here I am 19 years later, now known around the world as the relationships guy, and I built my business solidly by relationship. Wow. And you too, or your listeners too, can do the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And think about it. Relationships underpin everything that we do in life. You know, want to be a good leader, got to be in relationship with your team. Want to be in a team that works, got to be in relationship with those other people. If you're a salesperson and you want to sell stuff, got to get into a relationship quickly. So it really does underpin everything that we do.
And it's not just in that corporate space either, Lindsay. It's want to be a father, got to be in a good relationship with your family. Want to be a good husband, want to be a good wife, want to be a good mother, want to be a good teacher, want to be a good... Fill in the blanks. You need that people, and as Jim Rohn says so well, you know, it takes a marketplace to succeed. You can't build an empire by yourself.
Correct. And, you know, time and again, that's been brought back to me. And the other thing that I've done, you know, certainly build my business by relationship, but I have served and service, you know, it's not, I've done something for someone to get something. I have, my dad used to say, if you're going to get involved, if you're going to be in something, get involved. So back in 1998, I joined an organisation called the National Speakers Association of Australia. It's now known as Professional Speakers Australia. I went to my first ever convention in the year 2000 in our nation's capital in Canberra. And the overwhelming message I got was, if you want to be successful in your business, serve your chapter. So I came back to Brisbane, where I lived, went to the chapter president and said, I volunteer. What do you want me to do? And she said, you used to work in the tax office, didn't you? You can be treasurer.
No.
Yeah. I love being treasurer.
He says with a shake of his head for those who are listening on the MP3.
But here's the thing: I served and I learned so much, and I learned, initially I was kind of climbing up the coattails of these giants that I worked with, and eventually got to stand on their shoulders, and I learned so much from that service. So I eventually became the Queensland state president. Then I went on, I joined, of course, I was on the national board. I then became the national president, and I did 9 years of service nationally, right? And I was about to hang up my spurs, 1 more year as the immediate past president, and I got this phone call, and it went something like this: Lindsay, I don't want you to answer this question immediately, but if you were to be asked to nominate for the role of international president, would you accept that nomination? And I went, oh, that's easy, yes. And they went, no, you weren't listening. You got to think about this. It's a big job. I said, I've already talked it over with my wife. I never dreamt that I would be asked. But look, I'll humour you. I'll call you back. So I put the phone down, counted to 10, called them back and said, I'm still interested. I went on, I was elected as the international president and served in that role in 2009, 2010. And Walt, that really opened up the world for me. And I made so many international connections, created business partnerships and joint ventures around the world. And that really catapulted my speaking business. And, simply by giving and serving. In 2013, the association recognised my efforts and gave me a membership for life. So I'm now a life member of Professional Speakers Australia. I'm not telling you this to blow or toot my horn. What I am sharing though is if you're involved, if you're in something, get involved and give, because if you give, you receive.
Absolutely.
Now, along the way, one of my client groups is the Venue Management Association. So think about any sporting or entertainment venue in this country or around the world, in fact. The Venue Management Association exists in the US, there's one in the UK, there's a little one in Europe. So I got involved in this association, and way back when I did a lot of coaching, and there was a guy known as the $1 Million Coach, Ernest Oriento was his name, and he talked about having a niche. Well, he called it a niche. A niche is something else to us Australians, but a niche market, he said, 1 inch wide and 1 mile deep. And so I took that theory to heart in the Venue Management Association, and I got involved. I put my hand up and said, hey, you organise an annual conference every year. I'd like to help out. And so I organised their annual conference. Because I work in the speaking industry, I could get speaker mates to come along and present at their conference. I then got elected to their board of management. And again, service. I am now known as the go-to guy in that industry for teams and leaders.
Fantastic.
And so, again, through service, the rewards have come my way. So,
fantastic.
Get involved, give, and build those relationships is a really great way to leverage to create business.
I love it. So, Lindsay, when you're talking on stage, when you're involved, as you said, if you're going to be involved, get involved. If you're going to be there, go a mile deep. When you're talking, you're speaking, you're involved in those engagements with people. What's the main message that you're delivering to that audience personally? I mean, as you said, you've got speaker mates you can bring on who I'm sure can talk about a wide range of topics, each one of them specialists in their area. When you're talking to your audience, what are you talking to them about?
Okay, so I'm talking about basically how to get into a relationship quickly with someone and how to leverage that relationship to get more business. Now, have a think about this for a second. I'm holding up a mobile phone. We've all got one. And I guarantee if those people who are listening or watching now, if they get out their mobile phone, open up their contacts and start scrolling through their contacts, they will see names in there and they'll go, oh, I haven't spoken to that person in ages. Oh my goodness, look at that. Oh, there's another name I'd forgotten about. Social scientists tell us that we all have a minimum of at least 250 people we know. I've got thousands in my phone. I know that for a fact, right? If we don't keep in touch with these people, we're missing opportunities. So we can leverage the people that we just know, and they will refer us into other businesses. They'll create opportunities for us simply by asking. Now, in my book, and I wrote this little book called The DNA of Business Relationships, How to Engage, Expand, and Energize Relationships. And in it, I go through a 10-step process where I talk about how do you get into a relationship quickly. And so this is the essence of what I talk about and what I teach people. So, when we meet someone for the first time, what do? Typically, we shake hands, we exchange our name and say, hello, I'm Lindsay. Yes, Walt, nice to meet you. So what do you do? And then what happens next? Crickets.
Yeah, absolutely. Silence.
People don't know what to say.
Yep.
And so what I do is teach them how to ask the question to get the conversation flowing.
Great.
And if we apply the good old 80-20 rule here, you talk 20% of the time, get them talking 80% of the time, they will walk away going, wow, that Walt, he's such a nice guy. And all you did was ask them questions to get them talking about themselves. Now, so what do you talk about? Well, find something you got in common with them. Walt, I see you and I have, the same barber. Well, actually, I'm a long way down the track.
I've got to go back a few more times before I get there, but there you go.
But, a silly joke.
Yeah.
We could start talking about the, gee whiz, I do my own hair now. I'm saving a fortune on haircuts. Fantastic. I mean, you're not far behind me.
Yeah, there it is.
Who's your favourite sporting team? What about the weather? Oh, man, the traffic. And so we talk about something that we've got in common with someone else. I fly a lot. So Qantas and I are really good friends. I speak around Australia, Asia, New Zealand. So I move around a fair bit. Whenever I go to check in, the first thing I'll do is find something to compliment the other person on to create a little bit of rapport so we can have a conversation. So typically it's a female. I'm not being sexist here, but typically it's a female who's going to check you in. And so I will look to see if she's wearing any rings or any distinctive jewellery. Might be a gold necklace, could be a ring, a bracelet, and I'll go, oh, wow, that's a stunning ring. I love that. And they go, oh, thank you so much. And I go, somebody likes you. And then that will open up a story. And they go, oh, my husband, my boyfriend bought that for me. Actually, I bought it for myself. This ring was my mother's. This was my grandmother's. And so you've opened up, that simple comment opened up a conversation. You've got something in common that you can talk about.
Absolutely.
And so it ain't that hard to ask some clever questions to find the common ground to open up that conversation. Now,
so I've got some great friends who are entrepreneurs, who are, they're the startup guys. They're the people who are working, 24 hours of the day sometimes. But a lot of these guys, a lot of this crew are doing everything that they're doing these days online. So they're sending off an email, they're creating a dispatch order, they're doing that stuff, and it's all screen-based. And then when we get into that social environment, Lindsay, we've got that kind of, okay, let's get together for a conference or whatever. There's a lot of that silence. There's a lot of that awkwardness. For those people who feel like, I don't have the outgoing personality that I need, what would you say to those people to be able to help them initially get past that immediate fear of connecting with another human?
So in my book, I write about asking clever questions. And I actually, I give you a list of 60 questions. But what I encourage people to do is have a couple of tried and true open-ended questions. So an open-ended question opens up the conversation. A closed question, of course, is going to close down the conversation. So here's a typical one. How are you today? Fine, thanks.
End of discussion.
That's going to get you nowhere. But, instead I could say, well, that's an amazing, wow, look at that painting over your shoulder, mate. That's really interesting. Who did that? Now, if we're at a function centre, I might go, wow, look at that's an interesting art piece on the wall. I wonder what that's meant to be. And so just have a couple of questions which can open up the conversation. So what brings you to this event?
Nice.
Our host today is Walt. How do you know Walt? Gee whiz, so this convention's all about internet marketing. So what's your favorite platform for internet marketing?
Yeah, nice.
So just have a couple of basic questions that open up the conversation to get the other person talking.
And I think of it like, in terms of when I was doing my sales training, Lindsay, the sales trainer, the very first course that I ever went to, he said, stood up on stage and said, who are the highest paid people in the world? And we thought it was all trick question. There were 30 of us in the room. We all said, salespeople. He goes, no, you idiots. The highest paid people in the world are actors. And if we look at people getting paid $80 million for a film, and he said, actors learn a script and then they deliver the lines so that you believe it's coming from their heart. So what you're talking about there is developing that opening script, practicing it just a few times so that when you get into that social environment, you don't have to dig very far into your memory banks to be able to start that conversation in an easy and ongoing way, practicing those lines, yeah?
Absolutely. It's practice spontaneity. Robin Williams, one of the greatest comedians who walked the earth, used to spend hours practicing his spontaneous comebacks.
Isn't that awesome?
And it was practice spontaneity, and that's exactly it. If you have a couple of stock questions, and I'd even suggest I suggest to my clients actually write down 10 on a piece of paper and carry them in your pocket with you at all times. And if you get stuck, you just you kind of go, excuse me, and reach into your pocket, look at your question, and then come back and say, and so, and roll another well-practiced one. So if you get stuck, you've always got a question to open up the conversation. And of course, once you get the other person talking, it's not so hard. You nod your head, you do the follow-on things. Wow, that's interesting. Tell me more. Mm-hmm. And so you get them talking about themselves. And then here's the thing. We're all on the lookout for more business, right?
Always.
So while we're talking with that person, we're going to be assessing, is this someone that I could potentially be doing business with? And so, Walt, you're an interesting kind of guy. You're in touch with a lot of people. I think you and I could help each other in business. I would love to have a coffee with you sometime to talk more about that. What do you think? Would you be up for that? Could we organise a time next week or the week after to catch up, either by Zoom or face-to-face or whatever? So what have I just done there? I said we could help each other in business. I didn't say, I want to sell you something. Yep. Have I got a deal for you? I met a printer once. Seriously, true story. Chamber of Commerce. I love my local Chamber of Commerce meeting. Met this guy for the first time, and he said, hello, we introduced ourselves. What do you do? And I said, I'm a professional conference speaker. I speak at conferences, run training, some seminars and workshops. And then I took a breath and went, great. You run seminars? Yes, I do. You probably print workbooks? I said, yes, I do. Great. I can do them in black and white. I can do them in full color. I can print them. I can bind them. I can. I didn't even catch the guy's name, and he was already selling me something.
Yeah.
And so, no, never do that. The first meeting is always about the relationship. If you think you can do business with them, then that's going to be at the second or the third meeting. And it's always about, I think we can help each other in business. Because you know what? If I could sell you something, there's some way that I can help you in return. And I'm always looking at the win-win situation where there's something in it for me, something in it for you. I mean, why are you and I talking today? Because we connected through LinkedIn, saw something that we could each help each other with, and here we are chatting.
Absolutely.
I've got a message to share. You've got an audience who is interested in a message. We're going to create a win-win out of this. And
I hope that for anybody listening, that and they can check the show notes if they're driving and listening on the podcast, that list of 60 questions that you've got in the book is worth them going to Amazon right now just to get that list of 60 questions. So I hope I can send some sales your way, Lindsay. But more than that, you're absolutely right. There was an unknown between us. There was an interest spark and a connection. And it was, hey, noticed you. let's talk a little bit and see if there's some way that we can help each other. So that's a great way to get into in a networking event where we have that kind of group of people, and you find yourself with the cup of coffee or the glass of wine and staggering over to the next person. And I love the idea of having the stagger, stumbling or whatever it might be. I love the idea of having those practiced openers, and the phrases that you can work with. I'll come back to a story about a barrister in just a second. What about the scenario where we have workplace networks or workplace communication that's needed to develop? We've got a team of people that aren't really gelling. If you've got an opportunity to go into that boardroom with a company full of 8 or 10 people, let's say, and they're all good at what they do, but they're not talking together, do you have a framework that you can wrap around that group of people and help them understand each other a little better?
Absolutely. Look, it comes again. It's about, it comes down to relationship. It's about finding the common ground, and you've got to get on board with that other person. So we've got to find a way to connect and or help the other person. And I often talk about the PS. My mother was a great letter writer. She would, I had my eldest brother, I'm the youngest of 5 boys, my oldest brother, 14 years older than me, he's 35 next birthday. It's a visual joke, okay? Anyway.
I'm getting it, but my mind's just keeping up slowly. I'm going, okay.
So he lived in Darwin, and Mum used to write him a letter every Sunday night. And she did that for years and years and years. He lived there for 11 years. And sometimes she gets to the end of the letter and she'd do a PS. She forgot to write something. The PS is the postscript.
Yep.
Now, think about this for a second. You want to get on board with somebody, then do a PS for them. And the PS stands for positive service, a small act of positive service.
Nice.
So, I met a guy at a conference recently. We were at the buffet for lunch, and I'm lining up, and I took a plate off the pile, and I turned to him and I read his name badge and I said, "Oh, hi, Walt. Here's a plate just for you." And he went, "Oh, Lindsay. Oh, thank you so much." We ended up having lunch together. He became my second best friend for life. This is in America. I now have an open invitation to stay in this guy's house whenever I'm in America next. We had a half-hour conversation over lunch. Now, go back to your question. How can you create a small act of positive service with these other people in the room to connect in some small way, which will open up a relationship?
Because the other side of that is destructive, isn't it? I mean, when we look at that environment, when we look at that, and again, let's come back to that team of people. We've got 8 or 10 people in a group, and you might be the CEO listening to this podcast, and you might be thinking, "Gee, I wish sales would talk better to admin," or "I wish support." There's something there. If we look at this and say, unless we can communicate effectively, this is going to be a destructive environment. In other words, I'm going to lose my key people. That person who's a key person may just be going home at night going, "I'm so frustrated. I can't get my point across. I'm out of here." Okay. Versus where we can open up that communication, and we can literally have those people grow with us and say, I'm just so happy at my job and I love it. So you're saying that from a leader's point of view, if the leader in this is listening to this podcast, disseminating that down to their team to be of service positively for the other members of the team and encourage that same interaction. What can I do for you to make your job easier is going to get past a lot of those initial roadblocks.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned a word there and you said the key person. And it's interesting you raise it because in the book, I wrote about a concept called the key 4. And let me explain that. I'm going to hold up my hand and I'm holding onto my thumb for those who are listening, not watching, right? And then you've got 4 fingers radiating out from your hand, right? So imagine the palm of your hand is your target market. So think of 4 other people who share your target market but do not compete with you. Now, I'm talking this for business people, but this also works on an internal situation. So if you've got leaders in a large organization, you can have your own key 4 within the organization. So let me finish the concept. So there's you and 4 other people. The simplest example, imagine you're a residential real estate agent. Your target market's a young couple who want to buy a house, right? So who else would you have in your key 4? people who share that target market but do not compete with you. So I'm thinking straight up, you want a solicitor or a conveyancer, someone who can help, close the contractual sale. Probably want a mortgage broker, someone who can help the young couple get the best finance deal. You might want a building and pest inspector, an insurance person. And so all of those people share your target market, do not compete with you, and so you can refer business to each other until the cows come home. Yeah. And if you do this in a structured and rigorous way, you can create a whole bunch of business for each other simply by working on your key four. Now imagine this, you're talking to your insurance guy and you say, I need to do a bit of promo stuff. It'd be great if I get on a podcast somewhere. And he goes, I've got a guy. Can you see where I'm going here? I'm adding on another key four now. I've added my thumb onto my little finger.
Yeah.
And suddenly we've expanded the network. We've doubled it. I know this guy called Walt. He runs a podcast. He'd be perfect for you to promote yourself. So your key four networks can grow and grow and expand, almost like a DNA chain.
Yeah, beautiful.
It's the DNA of business relationships. So in business, you have your key four to generate referrals for you. If you're working in a corporation, you have four buddies who work in different departments who are connected, and you can help each other to get what you want or need in your organization.
Yeah.
And that might be more budget. It might be, better resources, more office furniture. It might be, I don't know.
It might be it could be anything. It could be, from the cleaning people coming through in the evening right through to the CEO. It could be anyone in any position that if you create that key four, that four component people that you can help each other accelerate, then you end up with a much stronger network communicating together moving forward.
Interesting. I explained this concept recently at an EA and PA, Executive Assistant and Personal Assistants conference. The people in the room went nuts. Afterwards, so many people approached me and went, "Oh my goodness, I never thought of it that way." The CEO always says to me, "Find me someone to do something," and I realise I've got these key four people radiating out from me in the organisation, and I just got to tap them on the shoulder to get what I want or need. Yeah. And I've never thought about it in a structured way like that. Wow. Yeah. And so, it's such a simple concept, yet it's so powerful.
Lindsay, do you know, sorry, keep going. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. Keep going.
Here's the other interesting thing. Remember, let's go back now to the networking function. And I said, when we're talking to someone, we're trying to assess, can we do business with them? Mm. What we're trying to assess is whether I can do business with them, or if I can't, could one of my key four buddies do business with them? Can you see how that works?
Yeah,
now?
Definitely.
So think about
I need to connect you with John, because John is,
Think about the leverage power that you've got if you're not just thinking about you, but you're thinking about four others. And then those four people are out there networking, not just thinking about themselves, but thinking about you as well.
Wow.
Can you imagine when you start to structure that, how that leverages to create opportunities?
Definitely. So here's my question for you. So I've got a scenario where, and again, talking to the audience here, we have what I like to call a solopreneur, somebody that, they've gone out on their own, but to this minute it's just them. They don't have that team of people yet. They've got an idea and they're just getting started. They're listening to this and they're saying, great, I love the concept of a key four, but it's just me right now. How would you suggest that person go out and establish that key four?
Yeah, brilliant question. And of course, they're going to go and buy a copy of my book for a start.
Of course, that would make sense. Absolutely.
But I'll save you the time reading. Here's what you're going to do. You got to think about who is my target market. And this is a really critical piece because, I was at a conference recently and I asked the question, I said, who's your target market? And this guy put his hand up and I said, yep, what's your answer? And he said, anyone in business. And I went, whoa. Okay, what business are you in? He said, I'm a graphic designer. I can work for anyone. I said, okay, but who's your target market? And he went, but I can work for anyone. I said, no. Think of it this way. You got to narrow it down. Imagine a dartboard. So when you hit the dart into the bullseye, what do you get? You get a pretty high score. I said once at a conference, you get the highest score. Someone pointed out, no, High score is 50 for the bullseye, triple 20 is 60. It's not the highest score. Oh dear, oh dear. Anyway.
There's always an expert in every room.
Score. Okay, you get a big score. So think about the dartboard as your target market. The bullseye are the people you want to work with. So they are the people who earn you the most money. They give you the most joy to work with, and they're the easiest people to work with, right? So think about those people. So if you're a graphic designer, well, who would that be? Well, I want to work with, self-employed real estate agents. They always want me to draw nice pictures of their house or make their brochures look great, whatever. I mean, just pick an example.
Yep.
So then my question is, if all of those real estate agents in Australia lined up at your door tomorrow, could you cope with that business? The answer is typically, well, no, not that many. Okay, so let's narrow it down a bit more. Real estate agents on the north side of Brisbane, real estate agents in the suburb of Chermside in Brisbane, figure out a way to draw a loop around it. Now, if you happen to have a real estate agent who's a good client in Perth already, fantastic, stick with them. But, think about who's your target market. So if you're starting out in business, number one, who's your target market? Then who do I know who works that target market, who does not compete with me, but works with that same target market? And then look around your networks, identify potential candidates, and then have a meeting with them. And the meeting would go something like this: Walt, are you interested in getting more business?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. The question, I have never asked that question and had a response of, yeah, no, not really. I'm pretty busy at the moment. Everyone wants more business. Right. So great. I've got an idea, a concept, which will help us both benefit. Are you up for that? Yes, I am. Great. Let's have a meeting. And so you explain the key four concept, how it's win-win. We both share the same target market. We do not compete with each other. Now we can share our client database. So the logical step is you recruit 4 other people. And then you've got to motivate those people to bring you business. You can't just sit back and go, well, I've done my bit. I invited them to the group. Now,
let the leads flow in, yeah. All hail to the king.
Work that way. So here's what you're going to do. You get out your database and you identify 10 people, and they identify 10 people. Then you're going to contact those 10 people and you go, look, I know this guy's name is Walt. He's incredibly handsome. He runs an amazing podcast, blah, blah, blah. So you're going to describe the other person's services. Would you be interested in meeting with him? Now, what's the possible responses? Yes, no, maybe. If it's a yes, then you go forward to the next step in the process and you organise a 3-way meetup. Best option is to have a coffee together, yep, where you can introduce and sort of massage the conversation. Not always possible. So you could introduce them and then they meet and, take it from there. If it's a no, you go, great, fantastic, thanks for your time. If it's a maybe, then you might have to help them understand more about the other person. Send them to their website, maybe forward some material, a brochure or whatever on their behalf. Yep. But you figure out the process and then you systematically introduce clients to each other. Wow. Can you see how that could work?
Yeah, brilliant.
And you do that in a systematic way, you're going to get more business, and it's all relationship based. And Walt, it's never, you should ring Walt. He could use your help. Here's his number. That's a cold call.
Yeah.
It's always going to be me talking to the person, warming them up to the opportunity, and then introducing them to the other person in my key 4. That's a warm referral.
Perfect.
I know the person's interested in chatting. Even if it's a maybe, at least they're interested. Whereas if you just say, here's the number, call them, well, they might as well just open the phone book and start ringing, seriously. Yeah, look, someone told me I should call you. You might be interested. Well, right. No, nobody wants to do that. I mean, by the way, that works.
Yeah, sure.
The research shows 3 people out of every 100 that you call will do business with you.
So get on the phones.
That is 97 rejections.
Yeah, that's it. You've got to have the metal.
So 19 years ago, Walt, that's how I started in my business, picking up the phone, ringing people.
Wow.
It's hard work.
And I bet you haven't had to do it since, because those relationships have been in place. So following that all the way through, Lindsay, I'm so grateful for your time, mate. And thank you so much. So following that all the way through, we start from a seed in the ground. It's just you. There's nobody else around you. You're doing your thing and you're starting to get started. And I love this concept. And again, guys, if you're listening to this on a podcast, just hold up your hand towards your face. Hold on to your thumb. That's you. The palm is your target market. So look at who your target market is. And I love, again, the concept of defining your target market by literally writing a job ad for your perfect customer. Right. So let's write that job. That's my target customer. Now we can say, who is 4 people that are connected to that? So these are the steps so far. Right. Now we've got our key 4. We've done that initial introduction. Coming back to your example of the printer who you met at the conference. When you meet with these 4 people, the absolute key is not to, this is what I do, this is what I do, this is what I do. All right. The key is, how can I help you? How is your business going, and how can we grow?
Yeah.
And then from there, we go into that proactive step of developing business for each other. And in all of the interviews I've done, Lindsay, I've had the pleasure of being able to interview people at all kinds of different walks of life. And one of the things that stayed with me every time I've done an interview is when I say to somebody, how did this all come to be? The answer 90% of the time is, I knew a guy who did this, or I knew someone, I had an idea and I knew this person, I reached out to them, bang. And it was a relationship that helped that business get started or go to the next level, or, expand internationally. It was a connection. And that old phrase of, it's not what you know, it's who you know. So I think that this 30 minutes that we've been able to put together for these entrepreneurs is fantastic. If you had any advice for someone who finds themselves now with these networks, they've got this Rolodex of people, and they want to keep that momentum generating and be able to be better at relationships moving forward. We've got that person. They're a well-advanced student of the DNA of business relationships. They bought the book. Now we want to develop them up into a well-molded leadership and moving individual. What advice would you give to that person?
So I think it really comes back to continuing to work the relationships. You really have got to, you've got to look out for your key 4, but in every case, there is someone. I'm always looking out. When I meet somebody, I'm always thinking, how can I help this person? And that, that leads to the PS, the small act of positive service. So, I just had coffee this morning with one of my speaker friends. She's a long way behind me in terms of the journey of her business. But we sat for an hour, and, she told me where she was up to, gave us some ideas about where to next. I'm always looking to help somebody because, you know what, when I started out, somebody helped me. And so I think that, again, that service ethic really, it underpins all relationships. I mean, relationships underpin so many things, but service underpins relationship. And if you can serve others, the rewards come. Seriously, and it's a kind of a spiritual law, the law of reciprocity. What goes around comes around. Seriously, it works. But you have to work at it. You got to look out for people, because if you look out for other people, they'll look out for you.
Absolutely.
I tell you the number of times I've helped someone over here, and someone over here has helped me back. And it doesn't make sense at times, but hey, it works.
I love that, where it's like it's that activity, isn't it? You're sowing the field over on the left, and the crop is coming from the field on the right. It doesn't make any sense. But if you're helping other people, if you are serving, then the law of reciprocity definitely comes through.
Yeah.
What do you think in terms of communication networks and making those relationships work? What do you wish more people talked about in business, in life, in that communication circle? What do you wish that more people were more open about?
I think that's an interesting one. I think people often feel they have to be successful no matter what. There's a running joke when we have our annual convention, the annual speakers convention in March every year. The joke is, last year I did 100+ presentations. I earned $1 million. I fly first class everywhere. And the reality is, it's not like that at all, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
so I think sometimes we actually just have to be a little more honest.
Right.
You know, when people say, how's business? You go, well, you know what?
It's been a tough time, or whatever it is, whatever the real situation is.
Well, you don't have to say I'm on the bones of my backside,
Yeah.
but you can say it could be better. You know, like it's okay. And you know, I cannot tell you the number of times when someone said to me, oh, you know, not going so well. Or they say, I say, how you going? They go, oh, busy. And I go, are you busy making money or just busy being busy? And then they go, you're just busy being busy at the moment.
Yep.
And so then, you know, my antennae go up to, well, how could I help this person? Or maybe I ask them a challenging question or give them an idea where they can go and actually create an opportunity, you know? Yep. Again, which other people did for me, you know, 19, 17, 15 years ago or 1 week ago. You know what I mean? Like, I still got, you know, I don't know everything and I've got a long way to go. I still got lots to learn, and I'm always listening to other people and, you know, open to new ideas, and there's always a gem somewhere, you know? It really is amazing.
So I love it. I think the you know, the answer there, what do you wish more people would talk about, would be just that ability to be human in a relationship environment, to say who they are and what they are without putting on an unnecessary front, and by doing that, facilitating more honest communication. As you said, if somebody's having a trouble, but they paint over it. I did 100 speaks last year. I made $1 million. I fly business class everywhere. Then they are really not opening the opportunity for you to help them at all, because by putting up that front, by saying everything's great, I couldn't wish for more business, everything's great, you're literally going to shake that person's hand and say, well done, good luck, I hope everything keeps going for you. And really what that person has just done is close the door to any incoming relationship-based help. So, and again, as you said, you don't need to say, you know, I've been sleeping under a bridge for the last 2 months. But if you've got integrity in terms of where you're honestly at, then you do allow that help to be coming through the door. And in so forth, relationship speaking, you can then in turn be helpful to that person as well. So I love that answer, being able to be yourself and have that integrity to allow that interchange to happen. I think that's a really cool thing. Lindsay, can I ask you, I do a 60-second challenge with a lot of our guests. And typically when I do the 60-second challenge, I ask them, you know, you've run into a friend who's just starting their business, what advice would you give them? And we've already talked about this key 4. So if I can, I want to just maybe take a little bit of a different spin on a 60-second challenge. So here's my challenge to you. I've got a CEO who's about to do a public presentation, like he's been board presentation. There's going to be press there. He is unbelievably nervous about public speaking because he's been a computer geek all of his life. Now, from yourself, coming back from your illustrious speaking career and being international president of that association, in 60 seconds, how can we take this nerve-wracked CEO to someone who can take a deep breath and walk on stage tomorrow and give them a little bit of a wraparound?
So first thing I'd say is talk to my buddy Pam Wigglesworth in Singapore, who's a coach for executives who are terrified. No,
nice. Okay.
So like did just so seriously, the thing is about they're going to make a presentation. So the presentation is about serving the audience, isn't it? So how can I serve the audience and give them the information that's going to help them? You know, how am I going to help them benefit by the message that I'm sharing? How do I serve them? And it's a question I often ask myself before I go on to speak. You know, I can do my routine, I can do my speech, my staff, or I can give a message to the audience that will help them learn and grow. So,
it's a very subtle change.
For that CEO, for that person delivering that speech, it's about how can I serve the audience best? And if, you know, think about what I did with the executive assistants and personal assistants. I gave them that simple little tool about the key 4 and help them, you know, quantify something that some of them have been doing anyway. So it's about really thinking about the audience and delivering the message for them, not for me, for them.
Yeah.
And once you step out of your shoes and think about them, it makes such a difference.
I love it. And as I said, it's a subtle change, because if you're going into that presentation thinking to yourself, I need to present myself the best way, I need to show off my product, I need to have my slide deck. And if you change that mentality to how can I present this in a way that my audience is going to get the most out of it, it really will help you change your delivery. I can feel that even as we're talking. Guys, Lindsay Adams is an incredible speaker. He's the man that can come into your organization. He can help you with your seminars. He can help your audience understand how to network better, how to communicate better, and how to break through barriers so that they can grow. He's also the author, as we said, of The DNA of Business Relationships, which you can grab on Amazon. Do Lindsay a favor by doing that. Lindsay, thank you so much for your time. If there's anything that you wanted to leave our audience with, let us have that last little piece of wisdom.
The last little piece of wisdom is, think about the PS. So here's my PS, my small act of positive service to you, is to be constantly thinking of how will you become memorable to that other person, and to create that lasting memory is to create that small act of positive service. So if your listeners are keen, get them to send me an email at lindsay@lindsayadams.com. I'll send them the 60 questions that we talked about, and that'll be my gift to them.
Fantastic. What a gift, mate.
lindsayadams.com. My small act of positive service to your listeners. I would love to share. That is really
wonderful. That is so great. And thank you so much. That is an incredible toolkit in your pocket as a gift from Lindsay. So thank you, mate. I really appreciate that. Lindsay, thanks for joining with us. I think that your journey coming from a background of audit, which, by the way, my father was in the same role with the ATO. So coming from that background of audit, making sure that everything adds up, and then expanding that into the human territory of networks communications. I think that is an amazing gift that you've been able to deliver to the world. And again, thank you so much for your time. I'm excited to hear about your speaking tours. I'm excited to see where you're going. And again, I'm just really grateful for your time, mate. Thank you so much for joining us.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you.